Not often all the action is on my end, but that's what's happening as we start this week on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon. So I turn it over to you,
Are you suggesting
John
it's
Shannon.
on my end? Are you suggesting it's at my end all the time?
Well,
no, come on.
Toronto.
No, never. Well, yeah, that's a good point. Although I will tell you right now, I do think that the shot across the bow in your town, I wonder, is there a boat like at one of the casinos that could have a shot across the bow?
I don't know. Shot down the strip.
The shot across the bow in Vegas, I'm sure there are people wondering, well, why didn't this happen a few other places? Why is Vegas doing it now when other teams that have been performing much worse than the Golden Knights, why haven't they done something like this? Even in the short term, Daren, when you consider that, John Tortorella didn't sign a giant contract. He signed for this regular season and the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You're right about that. And I was thinking for some of the reaction that came in, how many teams would sit back and go, could our organization be this dedicated and invested in trying to win and trying to win now rather than the process? And you think about what Buffalo's gone through and Detroit's gone through and some of the patient rebuilds, speed this thing up, go all in all the time, which the Vegas Golden Knights are trying to win the Stanley Cup every year.
Well, and you have to give Kelly some credit for making a decision at this time of year. This is a tough thing to happen. It doesn't normally happen. I can only think of 3 times in my 50 years in and around the game that actually, no, that's not true. 4 times, but one team's defunct now. What
are those 4 times?
Well, Fred Creighton fired, I think, Boomer Jeffrey in Atlanta. And then Phil Esposito fired Michel Bergeron with the Rangers. And our pal Lou fired Robbie Ftorek and Claude Julien. And in 2000, the firing put Larry Robinson behind the bench, and the Devils won the Stanley Cup. And in 2007, Lou went behind the bench himself, and they got through the first round of the playoffs. So those are the 4 that I remember.
Coaches do get fired past the trade deadline, but it's usually by organizations that are not going to make the playoffs. Right. Those examples, this situation in Vegas is different because there's expectations here coming into the season and still remain to challenge in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And there's the inconsistency of the team. There was no traction coming out of the Olympic break. They had a really challenging road trip and the thought was that they would find their footing after that. And it's funny, all the data, all the analytics are good. They just haven't been able to produce wins, and there's something missing. And there was obviously a feeling where if you didn't do something, it was just going to continue with this middle of the pack or middle range performance.
Yeah, it also speaks, I think, to the fragility of what's going on in the Western Conference and particularly the Pacific Division.
Yeah, the opportunity, right?
Right. You 8 games left. If you go 6-2, you might win the division, or certainly get home ice in the first round of the playoffs. And that's unfortunately that's a reality of the way that teams play. There has to be a hope that John Tortorella can give you that 10-game bump, and that we've seen in and around the NHL over the last few years with coaches that have come in from the bullpen. I mean, I look at what Rick Bowness has done in Columbus. That was more than a 10-game bump, but it's a bump. And so that's the type of thing that I think people are hoping for when the Golden Knights and let's be honest, the Golden Knights have a great deal of talent. A great deal of talent. Do they miss a few bodies? Sure they do. They miss Alex Pietrangelo. But he hasn't been there all year, so they've had to learn to adjust. And so that's become, the onus on what Eichel does, what Marner does, what Stone does. There are some star players on that club that need to drag this team, through the war. And there is obviously, and this is me speaking, not anybody else. There's obviously some level of disconnect at some point that said Bruce can't do it anymore. And so, unfortunately, when it comes to dealing with short-term success, which is what we're talking about, the coach has to pay the price.
There's 3 times since the Olympic break where we thought that, okay, it's happening. It's clicked. Boom. They're on their way. And there's been no follow-up to that. And with 8 games left, you have that really last chance option to make a change. And that's the decision that Kelly McCrimmon, the Vegas Golden Knights did. And then you bring in Jordan Tortorella. And like making a change 8 games left is surprising. I think more people were caught by the Tortorella decision, and that has an opportunity. Like the experience of Tortorella and the success of Tortorella, that will be something that you put somebody in there that gives instant credibility at the 11th hour.
You do wonder if there was something in place from a relationship perspective between Jack Eichel and John Tortorella, Noah Hannafin and John Tortorella, the guys that came out of the U.S. Olympic success to get to this. And yet, there were Canadians on that team too at the Olympics that would have seen John coach in Milan. There is a bit of irony in that, an American coach replaces a Canadian coach, and they were both in Milan coaching with their respective countries. So there's a ton of storylines on this one, but there's probably nobody alive that is prepared to coach right now that it's like have gun will travel. And John Tortorella is a career coach. He has darn well after the first practice, after the first video session, what he's going to deal with, how he's going to deal with it. And here's the one thing I truly believe. I think John Tortorella as a coach is terribly misunderstood. I think what you'll find with John Tortorella with the players, it doesn't matter with anybody else, but with the players, he's direct. And he's fair. There times that he gets, pissed off? Yeah, there are. But it won't be for the lack of him trying to communicate. So if the players are open to communication, and dare I suggest a firing at this type of year is a wake-up call. If the players are open to suggestion, open to input, you will get input, and you can respond. And so yes, I think we were all surprised when John Tortorella's name came up in the press release. But if you look at what needs to happen, there is, after the fact, there's some logic to it. There truly is some logic to John Tortorella going in for the 10-game bump for the playoffs, because we know the team will be prepared. Mm. We know that will happen. And I truly believe, you mentioned this team believes it's a Stanley Cup contender. Yes, I'm sure they do think that within the office, within ownership. But I'll tell you what,
that roster is a Stanley Cup contender. They haven't played like a Stanley Cup contender.
Honestly, I think you have to look at the goaltending and ask that question. And I think you have to look at the blue line and ask that question. I'm not disputing the forwards. I'm not disputing the forwards, but there are other weaknesses.
The numbers in goal are, they speak for themselves, and you can't argue with that, whether it's analytically or whether it's the eye test. I like their blue line, and they've settled in. Anderson's it took a while, but they've got their pairings now, and just watching every night, I think you would like their blue line more than you would insinuate there. That would be my only pushback there.
Well, that's fine. I think some really good players have not had very good returns from Olympics. I don't. I really do. But that's my personal opinion. That's not anybody I've talked to. That's in watching every game that they've played. That's what I see. But I truly believe that John Tortorella was brought in to win one series at a time. Yes, and that's to beat the Edmonton Oilers, because tactically he will have his team prepared to beat the Edmonton Oilers. You will see a much better structured team defense now, hopefully within 8 games, and then to the playoffs.
Their team defense is one of the best in the league.
Not winning. You're not winning.
No, and that probably has more to do with the execution offensively. But just talking foundationally, I think this is between the years. I think this is a fresh start for everybody.
Sure, it is. You're right. It is all between the years, and he will refocus his club. And this is not a criticism of Bruce. We're all fans of Bruce Cassidy, but coaches in the National Hockey League now, because of the relentless nature of the game, of the schedule of life, coaches get tuned out at a certain point. Coaches' voices get lost at a certain point. Everybody goes through it. The greatest coaches in the game get lost. I think I watched enough post-game press conferences to know you could see the frustration on Bruce's face and hear it in his voice that, the players were being told the right things. The players were being told the right things. But
I'll sum it up this way: the play after the Olympic break was not good enough, not awful, but not good enough. Certainly, as a whole, certainly the last stretch would err on the other side. But you look at this roster, and my phrasing is you don't want to let an opportunity slip away. You don't want to waste a year. So you make a change, you gamble, and hope. It's not even a gamble. It's taking a chance on hitting things and getting that coach's bump and going in. Otherwise, you just let a year pass with a really good team.
And I think the conversation could have gone like this: what do we have to lose? Because we're not very good right now. What do we have to lose? Here, I'm going to make an outlandish prediction. You ready?
Yeah.
John Tortorella's on a contract similar to that of Rick Bowness. He's going to coach the rest of the season and into the playoffs, and then they're going to, judge whether it's a marriage or whether was it just a short-term fix, and whether both sides are happy. I guarantee you that Bruce Cassidy will be a head coach in the National Hockey League starting next September. And we will be I think Bruce Cassidy has a better chance of being behind an NHL bench next year in September than John Tortorella does.
Totally accurate. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Torts wants to coach anymore. This might have been the perfect opportunity for him to jump back in.
We all have friends that are exactly like John Tortorella. And if they can walk and they can talk, they will coach. John's in great shape. John's been in tune with the game all season long, whether it be preparing for the Olympics or being on ESPN. He's probably watched more hockey this year than he watched while he was coaching the Flyers. Because when you're coaching the Flyers, you only watch your team, right?
Yeah.
In theory. But I guarantee, I think John Tortorella is primed and ready to go, and loves coaching that much. And it's an opportunity, and I don't think John would ever turn down an opportunity.
What do you think the reaction was in the Oilers or Ducks organizations?
I wondered that too. I got one text from somebody. I said, Tortorella's going to Vegas, and the answer was, damn.
Yeah.
Because he's, in my opinion, again, I think he's been hired at least, one series at a time, get past the Edmonton Oilers.
And it will start with games against Vancouver and Calgary, 2 teams outside the playoffs. You can establish a little bit against clubs that are not vying for a playoff position or a championship and maybe get some confidence. And this team's just looking for confidence right now. That's where it is.
No. Yeah, I understand that. It's unfortunately, for every story that a guy gets hired, a guy gets fired, and that's why coaches now are getting compensated well. Bruce has another year in his contract, so Bruce is going to either be coaching somewhere or enjoying some time, on Cape Cod.
Couple of strong statements here. You and I disagree on a few different fronts. You know what we'll do is we'll play this back, or we'll review this at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs to see who was closer to being accurate.
Well,
maybe we'll get Colin Campbell to digest
Hold on. So before we go then, how will you define success of John Tortorella's coaching in Vegas?
Third round.
Okay. Fair.
See if it works. Because that's what the expectations are of this team coming in. They want to win a Stanley Cup. Are they feeling that mojo right now? No. Does this get them into that area that matches their expectations? And they thrive on those expectations. They lean into those expectations. You don't make a change with 8 games left without having expectations.
You're bang on, big boy.
Mm-hmm.
Bang on.
So Colin Campbell is going to join us on the subject of video review.
Is he coaching too?
He's not. He hasn't coached in a while.
Oh, it's 30 years almost.
New York Rangers. He's the guy that modernized the video review system in the National Hockey League. It's a subject right now. I've got a take on what's happening with this discussion about video review. Maybe Colin can walk us through the reactions at the recent general manager meetings and how they plan to react to those.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people that are looking at not necessarily the managers meeting, what's happened since, wanting to know what should happen. But we'll see.
100% Hockey with Colin Campbell next with Millard and Shannon.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
Joining us is Colin Campbell, the Senior Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations, a Hockey Hall of Famer. You sent me the intro to you. Did I get that right, Coley?
I don't know what it is now. I know right now I'm not called that. I'm called other things right now at this time of year. So,
okay. So you're referring to video review, I'm sure. And this is my take on the National Hockey League. When video review becomes the hot topic in the media, it means the game's going well. In the sense that nobody's got anything else to talk about, so we default to video review.
Well, right now, like last night, and what's killing a lot of teams are these 3-point games. Mm-hmm. And there's some real good races. Teams are out of it. They tell you that at the trade deadline, all of a sudden they're back into it. So the pressure, and I'm finding the pressure to make the playoffs right now is more so than the pressure you get in the first round. I always tell the guys when our conference calls before each round, starting with the first round, this is an important time of year, an important round, obviously. We have 16 teams battling. And, you can't do this, you can't do that. Don't be texting us during the game trying to lobby and effectuate the game. The game is going to be won on the ice, not off the ice. And when you're done, I'll tell the teams, the 8 teams that move on to the second round, you're happy today. Everything's fine. You're glad you've moved on. Pressure's off. Until tomorrow when you're in the middle of the first game, you want to win that more so than you did the first round. And it builds every round that way. And we seem to have that pressure now more so than I see the past to make the playoffs. And so you're right. you're right that Daren, that the one thing that seems to be the catalyst right here is coach's challenge, and it's the most important part of the game, the act of scoring a goal. And you're going to win or lose, and you got to get the puck in the net. And the challenge thing, when a coach challenges, he's competitive, and he doesn't want to lose that challenge. And when he loses it, like we've had a couple here in the last week where I just can't believe that they made the challenge. We can internally, but we go with it, and then we have the conversation afterwards, and it's fairly heated. But I'll point to last year when we really tore this apart. 54 challenges we looked at the GM and coaches, or at the GM's meeting, and of the 54, they agreed with us on 48, and the other 6 were like 17 to 13. Like it wasn't like it was 32 to nothing. So we're going to have that, and we even have it internally. It's not always like 6-0, 8-0. We'll have 4-3 votes internally, and then I got to make the call. I happen not to be around, and there is a time when I got to go to the bathroom. I'm not there for the call. Chris King will step in and make the final decision if it's close. So it certainly is part of the game now, and teams are on such a precipice of a passion right now that this really sets them off, and they almost seem blinded when there's a coach's challenge. And what's really, it's kind of comical. I'll talk to player safety job, which I did for 11 years, which wasn't fun at all. I'll say to George, what we need, George, is a real tough supplemental discipline, so they stop talking about goaltender challenges. You can wear this for a while.
But since the meeting you guys had in Florida, and in particular, there was a couple, one in Pittsburgh and then one on the island, where, I mean, how do you create a process that people can understand the rulings you go through? Is there a chance of more transparency?
No, not really, Joe. We've looked at every possibility. Like, I just had a conversation with a coach, and he asked me a number of things, and he wondered if we could erase the starting point of the referee called no goal on the ice. Unless there's something that's dead wrong, we're going to leave it as that. That was the premise of the original coach's challenge. The referee needs a second chance to take a look at what happened, because the whole world, and you know this, John, you send me clips now, we'll get black and white games on there. And the way the visual experience of a game now is so nice compared to what it was, with high definition and so many angles and TV cameras out there. The referee was the last person who got to see all that. And even the guy sitting at home in his armchair had a better view than the referee. So we consider the referee's choice to begin with. Was it a goal on the ice or no goal? And then, is it dead wrong? And let's overturn it. So, and there's lots of close ones. And lately, one of the areas that's heating up is when they drive to the net. And how did he get to the net? Was he pushed in there? And we have to look at it closely. And we try to use a little bit of our hockey knowledge, even though we get lots of arguments to that. What do you know about the game? What do you know about hockey? 52 years ago when I first started in this game. So we look at that, and you guys know it too. You interview someone between periods. Hey, Johnny, what do you got to do this period? Well, we got to get pucks to the net, more bodies to the blue. And that's what they do. It's an important part of the game to manufacture goals. Ken Hitchcock can go into St. Louis, and he can immediately cut down their goals against. He can improve goals for. You got to draft well, maybe trade for talent. You can't coach talent. And so, but they can coach defensive responsibilities, left wing lock, anything. You can cut your goals against down if you're a good coach in the game. And so they've got to manufacture goals, and it happens at the net. And that's one of the reasons we had goaltender challenges in the first place. There's so much happening around the net. I remember Dale Talon constantly berating us at the meeting ever since they had Colton Orr hit Luongo and drove him out of the net, and no one saw it. And bless their souls, Pat Quinn and Brian Murray. I remember them coming with certain plays that they wanted turned over. So they banged on us for 2 years. I think it was 13, 14, 14, 15. We've got to introduce a coach's challenge. So, and someone will replace me. Someone will replace Chris King, Kay Whitmore, Rod Pasma. Someone's going to make the decision. So, and I think this is one area in the game of hockey that it'll always be we haven't fixed kicking the puck yet, John. That raises its ugly head every now and then. And I don't know how you do it. As we all know.
Here's what you do with that. What you do with that is you let it happen. Let it happen now.
Until a guy kicks somebody in the Achilles tendon and splits it open. Jimmy Gregory all say that. Yeah, I can't do that. Someone's going to get hurt in the crease. Your goalers are getting – he's the only guy who called him a goaler. Your goalers are going to get injured. You can't have people kicking the puck in the crease. You're right, though. So maybe that way – and we've said that, too, before, John. Said, screw it. Let's just let's let them kick the puck, They can get it any way they want. High sticks. We don't care where the puck is. Just bang it out of the air. But rules are rules.
Do the coaches have a firm grasp on goalie interference?
No. I think they're influenced. And again, I'm so old, as I mentioned before. We invented the first video coach in New York with the Rangers, a guy by the name of John Cristiano, 91, 92. And now I tell these video coaches, I created the first video coach. And with this rule, we created jobs for you guys, and you only do one thing. I ask guys, what do these guys do other than coach a channel? So that's all they do. Now, if someone's listening to this podcast that's a video coach, they're going to hate me. But, we hear complaints from these guys all the time. And I get it. It's a passionate time, and he makes a decision. He's wrong. Everybody's looking at him like cross-eyed on their team. Why did you do that? It cost us a game tonight. So there's lots of pressure on him, but there's pressure on all of us in the jobs we do. And so some coaches do have a handle on it, some don't. And it costs them. I thought it cost the coach in Columbus. He made some tough decisions this year. You'll go back to the LA playoff series last year with Edmonton. I think it was the turning point in that series when he made a challenge that he should have never made. So we try to explain to them. And they'll say, well, we looked at these, and these two look like the four we saw earlier in the year. And we'll go, well, look, there are lots of similarities. And but it's like when I used to do discipline. You look at the complete one, and they're like snowflakes. There are differences in all of them.
So let talk about. You were talking about the concept of doing a video review and then hearing from people. Do you then go through with the coach the next day or the manager the next day and explain the process to them and how they got to that? Or do you say the rule is the rule? I mean, how much byplay is there between hockey operations and any team that has a disagreement with you?
I'm looking at both your pictures here. I'm going to have to go get some hockey stuff and hang it on my wall there. So I'm like you guys.
You're getting distracted.
Don't change the topic.
It was well done, though.
I had goalies I played with. I think that's Richard Brodeur's mask. Or is that
There's no Richard Brodeur.
It's John Garrett.
John Garrett?
John Garrett, yeah.
Yeah, I played with all those.
Do not change the topic.
Okay. So the question was, do we go through with coaches and GMs? The odd time we will. They'll call us and we'll explain to them what we were thinking, and we won't talk about what ifs. We'll talk about the call we made and why, and we'll go through it. And if they bring up a comparable, we'll talk about it. And look again, and I just said it to Jared Bednar, and he's one of the coaches that gets it. But there's the odd time he's upset too. But there's going to be calls. Like I said, Betsy, I'll send it out sometimes. I'll send out a tough call to 7 or 8 or 10 teams. and I'll ask them their thoughts on it. Because guys get really passionate about the one play, and I'll get a quick response by some guys, yes or no. Other guys will take a while and I'll say, what were you doing? Well, I took it down to my staff, and we were 4-3 on this one. And I'll say, so were we. They're not all going to be 7-0. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be tough calls. It's the same thing when you make a trade. Your whole group's not going to agree on a trade. At the end of the day, someone, i.e. the GM, probably listens to everybody, takes a walk, has a coffee, then comes back and makes a decision. It's the same thing as your coach on a lineup. Or what goalie am I going to play? You listen to your staff and everybody, and you make the call, you make the decision. And it can be that way in coaches' challenges. They are tough. But the one premise you should always understand is what was a call on the ice? And we take it from there. Was it a good goal or no goal? And a lot of times we'll say, look, if that was a no goal, we might have stayed with that call as well. So they're close. They're really close in these. And the good part about it, like with Saturday, you guys probably did it too if you weren't working. At 1 o'clock, you start watching games, and at 1:20, you turned it off, a.m. And we said, as usual, this game was at L.A. and somebody said this is going to go to or Vegas. I don't know which was it. Went to a shootout. Come on. And so, but we're watching it, and we're watching it, and hopefully in the playoffs, we just hope that there's not those controversies, but there will be. There always is.
Vegas, Washington did go to a shootout on Saturday night.
Right. Was it 3-0 1 point for Washington?
It was 3-0 Washington, and that was 4-3 Vegas.
Right. And what time did you drop the puck? Like at 10:40?
It was a 7:38 local, so 10:38 Eastern.
Right. We're hoping that. No, we're thinking of moving our office to Hawaii. Then we
Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, because we spent a ton of money there in Toronto right now, so maybe the next guy will. But we can't put that in a truck like we can our outdoor rinks.
Is there a common denominator, Coley, on what makes a goalie interference play more challenging? Is it the crease, outside the crease contact? Is there bumping of the rush contact?
There's a couple, like contact in the white or blue is always tough to distinguish, and who gets what ice. We don't say a player can't go in and make contact with the goalie in the blue and trying to score a goal. But what kind is it? Significant contact? Does it prevent that goalie to make the save? Driving to the net, you're right. How does he get there? Is he pushed in there? Is he driven in there? Is he tripped in there? Does he go in on his own? And does it prevent the goaltender to do his job? We ask. That's one of the first questions we ask. He's allowed to do his job in the blue. And then again, how significantly does he get hindered by making a save? Sure, the skate hits his pad, but did it stop? A lot of times we'll see the skate hit the goalie's skate. He couldn't move laterally. But as you know, goalies are nuts, and they never get scored on. They always get interfered with.
Yeah.
And there's some that are really demonstrative after that. I'm not going to say which ones, Winnipeg, but but he's competitive. I'll give Hellebuck that. He's very competitive. He fights every puck off, and when he gets scored on, he's upset probably at the fact he wants to have a shout every game. I get it. And there's other goalies. Bob's a little bit different. He goes down and we get this complaint by everybody. Oh, Bob's selling it now. So we've also got skaters that we know, like Hellebuck may have a point if it's Corey Perry in there or Gallagher. Like, we're not stupid. They drive to the net. That's their methods. And so lots of goalies. I just say Hellebuck because he's one of our most aggressive goalies and successful goalies. And then you get the guys like Perry and Gallagher and guys like that who've been around forever, and they make their money by driving to the net. So, and as I said before, guys drive to the net to manufacture goals. And so you're going to get contact in there all the time. And I don't blame these guys for being competitive. And there, as I said, it's the most important event in the game, a goal being scored. So you're going to get the controversy.
How close are you? Hold on. Just how close would you consider changing the crease again? Would you ever consider changing the crease at this point?
I've heard people talk about that. We've never talked about changing the lines of the crease. I think you're just changing the mark of argument. Like if you change there's going to be an argument. Wherever you move that line, there's going to be an argument.
We all agree on that. Well, Coley and I.
No,
I don't know about John.
Maybe the three of us on this call do, but there are lots of people that say, let's make another line outside. So it's like the warning track in baseball.
No, John, we've gone from 2-inch blue line to a 2-foot blue line.
Oh, I know.
We were doing all those experimentals, and it never changed things. It just changed the point of argument.
Right. Take a break. We'll come back with more with Colin Campbell on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
Car shopping should be exciting, not exhausting. That's where Car Gurus comes in. They have advanced search tools, unbiased deal ratings, and price history, so you know a great deal when you see one. It's no wonder that Car Gurus is the #1 rated car shopping app in Canada. When you're car shopping on your phone, it shouldn't be a maze. You need to see all the information. With the Car Gurus app, you can. Powerful search tools that you see deal ratings, price history, and dealer reviews on listings all in one place. And you can turn on real-time price drop alerts so you never miss a great deal. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships when you're ready, ensuring a transparent, hassle-free buying process. Buy your next car today at cargurus.ca. Make sure your deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.ca. cargurus.ca.
John brought up transparency earlier. SEC in football, they put a camera and you could listen in to the video reviews. How against that would you be and why?
I've wondered when it's time to retire. That would be one time when it's time to retire. like not a chance. We're sitting like it wrecks the process. Like you need argument and debate in the process. We want everybody's opinion. We've got 4 other individuals in our room that are full time, and they're young people in the game that are trying to move up. And I'll ask their opinion because they watch as many games as we do. I ask everybody's opinion, and so for our GMs and coaches and fans are so passionate, they're going to grab one thing we say and run with it, and it's gonna burn us. And I don't think it's right. I agree. You guys want as much input as possible, and you want to get in the dressing rooms. You want all the
not everybody.
Well, the people you're addressing, fans, they want as much as they can get, and I understand it. But at some point in time, like there's got to be speculation. You're not going to get George and Terry to say, Kelly to say, everything that went into their coaching decision change. Like we're not going to hear everything, and there won't be a show on that. They're going to say we had to move in a different direction. That's the most common thing you hear. So we're pretty open right now, John. But I don't want to go there. And I know we help the Memorial Cup, the CHL every year. Mm-hmm. We put a supervisor in there and we do their challenges and we do their discipline, and they wanted a neutral group. And we've got some free time at that point. We're down to either the final 4 or 2, and we got some people we can lend to them all the time. And one year they just said, so this is what we're doing. And I said, no, you might be doing it. We're not going to do that if that's open on TV. And the CHL made a deal. I don't know who was with Rogers or whoever. And I said, that's fine. You can get a different group to do this, but we're not doing that on TV. And I don't think it's right. And so they changed it. But Bob Gainey said to me once when he was GM of Montreal, they come and ask him every day, they'd like to do this, this, and this. And Bob Gainey said, no, no, and no. He said they come the next day. I think it was RDS. They come the next day. And he said they would ask him the same thing. And he said, you guys must have thought no, no, and no meant come back tomorrow and ask me the same thing. So, and I get it. You know, you want to improve your show. You want to improve your delivery. You want to improve things you're doing. And we look at it all the time. But we get that request a lot. So
I worked that Memorial Cup where they put the video review on the broadcast with audio, and it was awkward because there was a play that was pretty straightforward, and they were almost trying to guide the referee into making the call, and it went against what it should have. And yeah, that's probably the best example why you wouldn't do it.
I remember one time I was coaching the Rangers and I was mic'd by Fox, and I forgot I was mic'd. They did it during warm-up, and I was sitting there with Dick Todd, and I said, we're talking, I'm walking around, I go, you know, this Ray Bork, he is the dirtiest guy in the game. Like, he uses his stick, he doesn't care who he hurts. And I go, oops, I'm mic'd. You know, you forget. and so, are you honest when you're mic'd? No, you're not going to say everything.
Yeah.
And I don't, and there's things I think that I don't know if, as a fan of, if I really want to hear. You know, I want to guess at some of these things you're doing. I don't know if I want to hear everything, and I don't know if you're going to get the true passion. Well, you saw in the finals one year, they closed the door on the Edmonton dressing room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They wanted to really be truthful and emotional and passionate. They didn't want a camera in there.
We understand that. Is there any way that your explanations that get sent out can be more descriptive?
I don't do those at all. We have social media that contact us right after the play. Mm-hmm. They're pretty good at the things they use, the phrases they use. Mm-hmm. Now they've done so many. And they'll talk to either Chris King, Rod Pasmer, Kay Whitmore on what we're going to deliver out there. And we've got to be very careful with that because the coaches, the GMs, the PR people, they lean on that heavily. And they wait for 1 weak sentence in that explanation to jump on it. And mm-hmm. we're trying to explain as much as we can on those things and on how we came to our final decision. And we're very conscious. I know when I was doing discipline, Gary wanted me to do what they do now, and I was really reluctant. I said, Gary, you know, like I explain as much as I can to both general managers now, but for me to send that out, the next group of general managers, or the next general manager I deal with on a discipline situation, he's going to pull up one of those things I said someplace down back on the trail and say, well, you said this and this is what happened, and you were totally against your decision, totally went against it. Anyways, there's things you can say and can't say. And at some point in time, I know this sounds a little bit weird, but you got to look at everything. And you guys know this too. When you make a big decision in life, sometimes you got to listen to everything, grab a coffee, go for a walk, and make the call. So, you know, and hope that your senses, your gut feel is right in some of these situations.
How much do you feel for George Parros these days?
Like I told you, like when we have tough calls, on Coach's Challenge, I said, what we need is a real tough discipline situation so they forget about us and go move and start beating up George. I told George, this is somewhat easy when you talk to the teams tonight, for example, you're probably referring to with Toronto going to Anaheim and the injury to Matthews. I said, this is easy. Just refer to the Bertuzzi Moore situation. These things can turn into a real mess. And maybe if Goodas plays and someone says to them, let's go, and they fight and they throw a few punches and lines move in, it's over with that. That'll be good if that happens. But if you run around and chase a guy and they've already indicated there's going to be some payback, you hate for some stupid injury to occur. And it can get serious, as it did. Moore never played another game. Mm-hmm. And I made a call to the officials' room after the first and second period of that game. I actually went to the next game, that was the second game. The next game was in Denver after the Swede.
Naslund
got hit by Moore. And yeah. I thought the hit wasn't dirty. He got a penalty for it, but they played a game in Denver and nothing happened. Then they played back in Vancouver, the second rematch after the situation, the Naslund hit. And, of course, it's 5-0 for Colorado in Vancouver. Well, nothing good was going to happen after that. And I called the official in the dressing room, and I said, they looked the wrong way. Give them 10. Give them a game. No one's ever cared. Like, don't let this thing blow up. Not that they could have prevented it, but they were intent on payback, and Bertuzzi wasn't a guy that did that, but it was just the flavor of the day, and then the injury happened, and it was ugly, and you don't want this to get ugly tonight.
No. Hey, curiosity. There's a lot more. There appears to me a lot more teams trying to be tough right now. I mean, I watched Boston Columbus yesterday. Oh my goodness gracious! I watched Tampa play a lot. There seems to be a level of competitiveness that is people trying to push people around again as opposed to using speed. Is that me, or do you notice that?
I think it's a little bit the flavor of the year, John. I think people look at Florida. Why did they win 2 cups? And there's a copycat there. They played a little bit on the edge, but they didn't have the toughness that these teams. It wasn't about fighting. It was about hitting in scrums, and Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett and playing aggressive. And those guys really weren't about fighting. They played a chippy game, and so these other teams are trying to play chippy. It worked for Florida. Why can't it work for us? Boston. That's the way Boston's always played, or the fans want them to play, and I think they did a pretty good job this year in making their fourth line physical, and they've actually done a pretty good job on the ice. I think that coach has done a very good job there. He probably should be up for Coach of the Year, one of them. And Columbus, they got the Joey Kosher of the millennium here now. I think he seems to be the king of the mountain right now.
Matthew Olivier.
Even though Olivier got hurt last night after that fight, left the game. It's one tool I guess teams are using more so now than they have in the past. The question is, might get you to the playoffs, but you better be careful if you use that tool in the playoffs. It could cost you, and you could be out quickly. So it hasn't been a tool where you can, how many fights happen in the playoffs that are for a reason. The only time I always had this, you probably heard me say it before, a rule suggestion, but everybody laughs at me, is that the traveling minor. When a team sends someone out late in the game when the score is out of a difference, if a team decides to be goofy and want to fight, the last 20 seconds of a game, give them a minor that starts the next game. That'll stop that nonsense. I can't sell it to anybody, but the guy who likes it now is George Peros. He likes that suggestion now. So, but it is seems to be a little bit of the flavor of the day, John. But it'll be interesting to see how that works in the playoffs.
Never heard of that traveling minor. I'm with you. Again,
like that?
I think that's
great. You know yourself, Daren, with 17 seconds left, and the team scores an empty net. Out rolls the tough 6'4" defenseman. He's taking the face off the center ice. Yeah. Like, okay, here we go. And And sure, you can suspend them, but are you going to suspend them for jumping a guy? Like, is that a suspendable occurrence? No, just look. We're going to give you 2 minutes. It only stays in the series. It doesn't travel to another series. It just travels to the next game in that series. So there's not a team that would do something stupid knowing they're going to start the next game 5-on-4.
What's the biggest thorn in your side, or do you have one?
These podcasts.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, thorn on my side. Actually, when you sit back, nothing really. You know, we complain because we like to complain in life. But I guess the biggest thorn in my side, I'll get a little sappy here, is losing good friends and people in life these days. Probably because I'm getting older, as you guys are. Like we lost. I spoke at 2 funerals in the last year. Dave Branch and Greg Millen, and I miss guys like Greg Millen. I talk to him all the time, and I miss those calls. And that's probably, I got lots of friends, you know, because I'm in that age bracket now that for some reason, you know, have moved on. So in the big picture, nothing really. You know, the game's fun, and I look forward to real competitive games. And we've got some series out there, and I feel, you know, Steve Eisman's a good friend, and they had a real tough week, a real tough weekend, 3-point games, and they lost some key games. So there's some good races going out there. Unfortunately, some guys aren't gonna get in.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate you doing this, putting aside your feelings for podcasts and stopping by.
Well, it's always good talking to you guys. You're lifers, and it's good talking to lifers, and we'll see you along the way.
You bet.
We haven't heard your name rumored as a coach yet, so we're going to start that rumor. You're coming back to coach.
I think they forgot about me a long time ago, John.
Back with more on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.
Take care, guys.
Things up. See you, buddy.
Thanks.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
I've never had a conversation with Colin Campbell that I did not enjoy. He's just a pure hockey guy.
And unfortunately, I think he gets misunderstood a lot by people outside of the hockey realm, because this guy is tremendously knowledgeable about the game, passionate about the game, competitive about the game, and in, you know, the 25, 26 years that he has been around the game in a senior hockey position, the game has improved, and it's in my opinion, it's directly due to Colin Campbell thinking about the game 24/7, 365. He never
I don't think we're any closer.
About the game.
We're not any closer to more transparency, though.
You got that, did you?
Yeah.
I want a very quick, brief explanation in a written form of why the rule was put in play. Not the rule, but here's what we saw. And I understand that it's difficult
on
to
the
put
ruling
those
of a goalie interference play.
Of a goalie
something.
Interference. I mean, offside's easy. Puck in the net's easy. Those are all very, very subjective. Goalie interference isn't. And here's the one thing. I was thinking about this last night. So there were 6 or 7 games last night. I didn't watch all 6 or 7 games. I didn't. I watched and cherry picked what I wanted to watch when I watch it. These guys watch it for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. These guys watch every game under a microscope, and so they do have a feel for the game. They do understand what's going on, and they do have precedent to deal with on a regular basis. That doesn't mean they're perfect and don't screw up or misinterpret something, but they have a much better feel on a regular basis for 1,312 regular season games. And so I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt a lot more than I guess most people would. I've been in the room. I've lived in that room for a while, so it's a difficult job.
I've never heard it phrased the way he put it, but I like that Colin confirmed not every ruling is 7-0 in the room. Like it can be 4-3, and it ends up going one way or the other. That he just admitted that there's different views on every play.
Yeah, and well, as Kevin Cheveldayoff told us on Friday, this is what we wanted, and so we have to live with what the rulings are, and we have to trust that group. And for the most part, I think most teams at most times do trust what hockey operations does. I got to tell you one quick story. So we're talking about microphones, right?
Yeah.
So in the mid-'80s, I'm producing a Chicago-Edmonton playoff series. And we and this is in the 80s, Hockey Night in Canada basically, don't tell the commissioner this, but the Hockey Night in Canada kind of ran the league. We did whatever we wanted when we wanted to do it. We didn't have to ask permission of Toronto or New York of what was going on. So I made a deal on the off day in the bar with the referee the next night. Hey, I'd like to do a feature on you. Why don't you wear a mic for us? Okay. And there was the league got to approve the sound. And, so the next day, guy gets the microphone. We record him doing the whole game. And I'm walking out of the building, and the Blackhawks have beaten the Oilers this night. And Glenn Sather comes to me and he says, John, did you have a microphone on the referee? I said, oh, yeah. He says, he wouldn't stop talking. That's all he did was talk. He came over and he was talking all the time. And that was the one that tweaked me to saying, if we put microphones on people, they do change their behavior. They do.
Most times they say less, but
not this guy. He talked a mile a minute for the whole game, and then he wore the microphone. He got braver. He became the show, and so ever since that time I've been a little more respectful of putting microphones on people. And are you really getting the real deal? Are you really getting that inside the ropes?
Well, you're closer than nothing,
I guess. But how many times do you see when you see players wear microphones, all they do is yell, yeah, way to go.
Well, yeah. It's not as complicated as we think it is out there.
No, I know.
So that's really what's going on. Just on Chevy, he's in a better mood. We were talking to him the other day, and I said, boy, you're a little low key. He's better now.
He's a little bit better. They won a game in Denver. That was after losing the game to Colorado on the Thursday before, and they're still alive. How about yesterday though? The Jets en masse go to Wrigley Field, and you don't see many very often visiting NHL teams get acknowledged on the video board. And Connor Hellebuck and Kyle Connor got acknowledged for winning the gold medal, and Jonathan Toews threw out the first pitch for the Cubs game.
That's cool. And it's not throwing out the first pitch in the middle of the season type thing where they just threw it out there. Like it was a marquee game this early in the baseball season. So that was awesome that the Cubs did that. Thanks for this. We'll chat again on 100% Hockey as John Tortorella returns to the NHL behind the bench of the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll chat about that and more as we come to you midweek with Millard and Shannon on this episode of 100% Hockey.